As an educator and human being, I believe that access to quality education provides us all with an array of great possibilities. This is especially true for those who, without education, might not be afforded the same opportunities as others. Those students who persevere despite the odds, whose educational experiences are affected by society's imposed ideas about race, gender, culture, and socioeconomic status, the students whose stories are not always included in the core curriculum, those are the students who inspired me to become a teacher. These students can be likened to roses, pushing through the concrete systems that seek to stump their growth. Of this concept, poet and philosopher Tupac Shakur said, "Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's law wrong, it learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else ever cared." Tupac's analogy of a rose that grows from a crack in the concrete is one that rings true for many. Despite circumstances, despite the marginalization of certain groups, and the realities like the school-to-prison pipeline, it is important to ensure that our students are not only conscious and self-aware, but also confident in their own abilities to overcome their own personal concrete, whatever that may be. Despite the fact that I myself have been lucky enough to lead a fairly privileged life, my experiences as a young adult were eye-opening and life-changing, and could be perceived as the metaphorical concrete Tupac describes in his poem. I dropped out of college after my first semester, and I worked a variety of retail jobs while I figured out what to do with my life. It wasn't until I went back to community college and took my first Chicano-Chicana studies class and found out I was pregnant with my son that I began to take my college career seriously. Now it wasn't about just me anymore. It was about making sure my son had a stable life. Becoming a single mom was unexpected. Going to school as a single mom was even harder. I went back to school when my son was 10 days old, and I often got my homework done with a sleeping baby on my lap. I took summer classes and online classes so that I could transfer to San Diego State as quickly as possible. When I graduated with my associate's degree from City College, I was accepted into SDSU's Chicano-Chicana Studies program. This is where I began to learn more about the school-to-prison pipeline, the experiences of students of color, and realized that the next steps I wanted to take in my education would lead me to becoming a teacher and UCSD's Education Studies program, so that I could combat the system of inequalities from within. My passion for this was shaped not only by my learning, but by my experiences seeing people I love deeply be affected by the criminal justice system and criminalization of young men of color especially. Transitioning into my new life as a teacher, I took my experiences and ideas about culture, social justice, and youth empowerment into the classroom with me. I learned during my time at SDSU and UCSD that there is a lack of equity in education, and that it is our responsibility as educators to do something to fix this. My entire reason for becoming a teacher was to not only fight these systems of inequalities from within, but also empower and support the students who are inevitably affected by said systems. By using culturally relevant pedagogy, supporting students as they challenge the status quo, and building up their academic and personal competence, educators can truly make an impactful difference in the lives of the youth we teach. Once again, the words of Tupac Shakur come to mind. You see, you wouldn't ask why the rose that grew from the concrete had damaged petals. On the contrary, we would all celebrate its tenacity. We would all love its will to reach the sun. Well, we are the roses. This is the concrete, and these are my damaged petals. Don't ask me why, ask me how. Here, Tupac Shakur does not deny that in the process of growing, some individuals might develop damaged petals. He accepts the reality of this possibility. However, instead of viewing these damaged petals as the epitome of an individual's identity, the only thing worth seeing, Shakur insists we instead recognize the miracle of that flower's growth despite its circumstances. The same can be said for students. Instead of viewing racial, socioeconomic, and cultural differences as labels of deficiency, teachers should in turn acknowledge the struggles faced by those students and attempt to find ways in which they can facilitate the growth of their collective roses. Damaged petals cannot be fixed, but they do not hinder further progress either. If we as educators put forth the same effort into facilitating and assisting the growth of our students as we might into a garden of roses, we can be certain that, like a garden, students and inevitably society and the world will also flourish.